one of the functions within a company that I have really in the last few months come to appreciate. And at the time when I worked with this group, I didn't necessarily appreciate how much of a difference their work can make. And that is having a strategic HR team versus having purely, operational team. Because what I found, especially in the work that I'm doing, is that HR are really important to the work that I'm doing, especially around processes and procedures and governance in combination with working with leadership. But actually, it's also being able to combine that vision of where do we want to get to? What does success look like? And how do we then measure and start that process in a meaningful way using the existing data that we have? And it's also being able to have the conversations around systemic issues. And when I say systemic issues, it doesn't necessarily mean that every person who works in the strategic function always understands what the systemic issues are, but they definitely have the same drive and willingness to approach it from a broader strategic perspective and understand how it can then be embedded within the company's ethos, within the company's values, within the company's processes. And how do we then course correct or redress any existing balances? And you see that especially when you kind of start talking around gender pay gaps and also whistleblowing policies, is that a strategic mind and a strategic group can also kind of be more involved in those leadership conversations because they have a better grasp of what's going on. Now, I've also seen in some companies that there isn't this kind of strategic HR group, which means that there can sometimes be a disjunct and a tussle between what leadership are trying to achieve and how that then is implemented within the company's like ecosystem. And that's also a really important part for me, and a really important role that we play is being able to bridge that gap. But if one of the tips that, if someone said to you, what would be one of the fundamental core tips that I would give around how can a company start to move in the direction of gender equality, gender equity, and addressing the imbalances and injustices within their own framework, my tip would be the creation of a strategic HR team who's also able to work with external parties in implementing the company's overall strategic vision, and also being able to work with leadership to provide that really important trifecta of leadership, strategic HR team, and external consultancy to get to where you would like to get to a lot quicker. So I look forward to hearing how many of you have strategic HR teams specifically, and potentially, how do you go about building that? What kind of people do you need? Always happy to provide more details. So have a wonderful day, and I hope that my tip was useful. Goodbye.